Welcome to Redtastic. Story 1. Hi, I'm 28 female, unmarried and childless. I'm mentally not ready for marriage due to a string of bad relationships. However, I love kids. I'm in the process of adopting a baby. It's a long and strenuous process, but I know it's totally worth it. I have a cousin named Gianna, 28 female. Because she's 3 years younger than me, we pretty much grew up together. But it wasn't a great relationship. She was an outgoing girl with lots of friends. She was very popular as well. I, on the other hand, just kept to myself and my books. Because of this, she used to bully me in school and at home. In school, she gets all her friends to take books from my bag and hide it or throw it around. She would purposely call me a nerd because I wore braces as well. She made school hell for me. Then I went to college in a different city. I found a job in my hometown, so I came back. Mom was also falling sick very often, so it was an added incentive to get a job in a hometown, other than just saving money. Gianna had also completed her degree in the community college and was working as well in our hometown. She was also in a relationship with someone. I, for whatever reason, wasn't able to find a steady boyfriend. And after a while, I just gave up. Gianna would mock me for it. She said I was gonna die an old maid. I didn't think too much of it. Gianna eventually got married and had 2 kids back to back. Now the mocking got worse. A month ago, we had a family dinner for Thanksgiving. That day, I was just casually telling my family that I was planning to adopt a child. Mostly everyone was supportive of it. Some said you need a man also, as bringing up a child will be easier with support. But Gianna, on the other hand, very loudly said she doesn't have the ability to find one man and hold on to him. How does she think she's capable of becoming a mother? The room went silent. I felt so bad and left the place immediately. My aunts and cousin came after me, but I just went home. I just decided to keep my distance from her. Then on New Year's Eve, I was spending time at home alone because I was feeling a bit sick. Mom and Dad had gone out to a friend's place for dinner, so I was all by myself. Suddenly, I get a knock on the door. I go to open it and see Gianna and the 2 kids. I asked her why she was here. She said she was here to drop off the kids because her husband and she had New Year plans. She said she knew I was not going to have plans anyway. And because I was hoping to adopt a child, that I could use some experience. I told her that first of all, her kids were not my responsibility. And secondly, I was sick. She didn't ask me for permission to drop off her kids. And so I told her that I was not gonna babysit them. 1. She got so mad and called her husband. Both of them started fighting with me, saying I was selfish and was never going to be a fit mother. I told them to leave before I called the cops. Am I the a-hole? Update. Gianna and her husband started telling the family that I was extremely selfish and should never be allowed to adopt. She said she was going to ruin the process for me because the child that I was going to adopt was going to suffer. My family took my side and called her out on her bullshit. Now she accuses me of turning the family against her. You're not the a-hole, OP. Gianna and her husband are the a-holes here. You're way too kind. You shouldn't be talking to her after all she did to you back in high school, that I'm pretty sure she hasn't apologized for. Her comment at the dinner was uncalled for, and then she dared to bring her kids to you without telling you beforehand. And when you refused to babysit them, she and her husband ganged up on you to insult and threaten you. That's an a-hole-ish thing to do. Cut contact with her. I don't see any reason why you or the child you're going to adopt should be involved or around someone like Gianna. Story 2. My husband spent the last year traveling for work, gone for 3 weeks, home for 1. Repeat. It was hard on our marriage. When that ended, he was asked to go to India. During planning, he asked if I wanted to come, as we only had to come up with money for my flight. I wanted to, needing to reconnect with him, but I wasn't sure about getting childcare. I asked my mom, she said yes, that my half-sister would be visiting her, but they had plenty of room. Excited, we booked all of our flights. Next day, my mom tells me that my sister is angry that my kids will be there, and she's threatening to cancel a trip. My mom is the type that would give away everything she has if it means her loved ones being happy, and this stressed her out. I asked my sister what's up, and she yelled at me, calling me selfish and inconsiderate, saying her fiancé has 5 kids they're bringing and she doesn't want any more kids there. She wants my mom to get to know her new family. She complains she never gets to travel anywhere I do and I should just let her have a trip. That I should have known not to ask. I felt she was just trying to sabotage the trip for me. I told her that her group is a problem. It's her life choices that led to having that many kids in her life. And on my mom's side, family is always welcome. My mom is not her mom. She's my dad's kid and wasn't around much when we were young. My mom was sad because she wants to spend time with her grandkids that she hardly gets to see, and now this. My mom doesn't budge. Tells her if she wants to cancel a trip, that's up to her. I'm upset that she takes from my mom but treats her badly. We continue as planned. Sister stays there with her fiancé and his kids, borrows my mom's car, accepts everything my mom gives, home-cooked meals, tickets to the amusement park, and they all have a good time. Months later, mom was visiting and staying at my house. Sister was in the area and they were trying to figure out how to meet up. Mom asked me if sister could come to my house. I decided it would be a good time to work things out, so I said yes. Olive branch extended. Her response was that I never apologized to her, and she had nothing to say to me and refused to come. In the months following, I had a gathering at my house for Christmas where all were invited. Unbeknownst to me, my older half-sister and dad planned a separate gathering because my middle sister didn't want to see me. After hearing some whispers, days later I saw on Facebook that they all got together without me. Instead of telling us to work things out, they just appeased her and bumped me out. So now my kids miss out on that side of the family because of my middle sister's tantrum. Since then, I've decided to take a step back from all of them and haven't spoken to them in years. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole, OP. First of all, you had your situation arranged with your mother first. Second, she could have called you calmly and tried to work something out as opposed to shouting and making demands of you. And finally, she and that whole side of the family are trash. For being passive-aggressive and helping her with her revenge against you for what? If it is even a slight, a minor slight. She's being a child by holding on to this for so long. Now for some comments. Not the a-hole. They did this to themselves. Why would you want to speak to people that exclude you and your children for no reason? Just know that your family isn't the only one that does stuff like this. For some reason, the kid that gets appeased is the one that will screw everyone else over. Not the a-hole. Your mom was okay with your kid staying over as long as it's her house. Your half-sister cannot dictate who gets to come or not come. You offered an opportunity to patch things up, but your sister refused it. Worse, your family enabled her tantrums by avoiding contact with you instead of sitting you both down for a mature discussion like adults. It's on them, not you. Not the a-hole, I think, but this was very confusing. At first I thought that the whole family was going to India with you because you didn't specify that your mother was saying yes to providing childcare while you were gone. And then out of nowhere, you start talking about your middle sister, whom it took me a minute to realize is in fact the half-sister. Maybe I'm the only one who was confused though. At any rate, you made childcare arrangements with your mother without knowing what her plans were. So how could she expect you to be deferential to those plans? So on that basis, you're not in the wrong. Story 3. I'm 32 male, married to Mary 28 female. We've been married for 1.5 years, together for 10. Relevant family members: mom 63 female, Zach, emigrating brother 38 male, oldest brother 42 male. Timeline: November 2017 bought our house. October 2018 mom moves in. January 2019 Zach, 38 male brother emigrates, moves in. February 2019 we marry. Today, am I the a-hole? My mom got into a fight with my oldest brother, who financially supported her and asked to move in with us. Financial support would now be our duty. My wife had reservations but said it was okay, so mom moved in October 2018. History: my family emigrated to the US when I was 15, with my oldest brother being our sponsor. Zach, 38 male, couldn't come because he was too old at the time when I emigrated. He previously worked sales in our home country, but got the green light to emigrate. Since my oldest brother had served as a primary caretaker when we first emigrated, the assumption was that I would take in Zach. Mary and I compromised on having both my mom and Zach stay with us in our 3x2 house for 2 years max, to get them on their feet, January 2019 to January 2021. My wife has been pretty unhappy. We fight about my family living with us, and she essentially stays in our room all the time, saying she doesn't feel like it's our home and that this wasn't how she pictured being newlyweds. My mom works, and Zach has looked for jobs and finally found a job that pays some bills. They do not pay rent or utilities. My wife and I split our mortgage, and I pay for all of their expenses with the exception being my mom's cell phone bill. My wife pays for our phones and my mother's. My wife has had enough of them and asked me to kick them out back in June. I think this is unfair because we've told them 2 years. Also because they're still getting on their feet. It's also hard because they're my family. We've been fighting weekly about this, and so I finally caved. When I told them, my mom came back with a monthly stipend request because they can't afford to live on their own with their dual income at this time. They're looking for $350 per month. Mary resents this because she feels like they don't try hard enough. She called a family meeting to discuss their finances. Mary had some fair points to raise since they could go cheaper on some things. When we sat down to discuss, she raised a question to my mom about her car, at which point my mom lost it and started shouting at Mary. I definitely don't think she should have shouted, and all I could think to say was "Mom" to get her to calm down. Mary initially asked my mom to calm down, let's discuss this, but then lost it also when my mom kept shouting. They both eventually calmed down and everyone's okay now, but my wife is angry with me for not standing up for her. She's pissed, saying that this is her house too, and she shouldn't have to deal with my mother screaming at her. She also says she would never have let her dad shout at me in our home. I feel stuck in the middle and don't know what to do. Am I the a-hole for not standing up for my wife? Now for some comments. You're the a-hole. Your wife has been helping support your mom and brother, and it doesn't seem like they're doing much of anything. I understand your wife's frustrations, and you should not have let your mom yell at her like that. Seems like this is causing a lot of marital issues and needs to be resolved quickly. You two are newlyweds and should be enjoying yourselves. You're the a-hole. Your wife voiced her reservations from the very start, but you went ahead and moved in more and more members of your family, promised more and more things, and piled more and more responsibilities on her over years. She now feels like an outcast in her own house, having to work harder to support people who aren't close to her, and she never wanted to live with. All while she has to see her husband, who promised that she would be his priority through marriage, constantly choose others over her well-being. You're the a-hole. Mary is not paying her half of the mortgage so your two family members can live there. It was for you and her. She also should most definitely not be paying your mother's phone bill so your mom can send money to other people back home. Mary is financially hurting at worst, hindering at best. Her own finances for you and your entitled family has been doing so for a prolonged period of time. They're your relatives, but when you're married, Mary, she became your family. Back her, whatever she's saying. You owe her that much at least.